the thing is, if you're just looking for like what's the opposite of liberalism, it's very easy to find Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk will, unless you can either find Charlie Kirk or like some strain of online Hitler, right? And like, neither of those things are sort of good or adequate or proper or like useful. They're actually useful pretty much to the powers that be, because one of them is a sham and the other one is kind of a straw man. And if you inhabit either, you're basically you're going to zero. I think that basically sort of the actual dissident movement, if I could even call it that, I wouldn't even call it that, has to sort of be conscious of how sort of small it is in size relative to what it could be, and what these things with kind of quasi mainstream distribution like the Charlie Kirks of the world can do. And yeah, I wouldn't, like Kyle Rittenhouse is not an intellectual, right? I mean, right. And so you're basically like, and I think also sort of hopes of broader impact are almost kind of inappropriate. And it's like, do you even really want that? Once you basically are like, okay, I can, I have a reasonably sized non-mainstream audience, that can actually sort of earn me a living outside these institutions. I'm like, sure, who would not like a bigger living? Great, whatever. But like, the thing is fine actually as the size it is, because what matters now is sort of the actual work that is created and not what you get people to do. You can't get anyone to do anything. You shouldn't be trying to get anyone to do anything. We're like, it's way too early for that, basically. And so that, way too early. It's too early. It used to be way too early. Now it's just too early. But yeah, sort of that level of just like sort of being patient with one of the things that, like, just in terms of being like a social network, which, any group of people who think in similar ways it's much more important to have sort of high quality than high volume, because I mean, for just a zillion reasons.
You're probably not aware of this, but I've talked about building a network of tens. Because that's what we need. It's essentially a kind of a vanguard who are able
a vanguard. And it's like you'll go and you hear a lot of talk about like this University of Austin thing that some people are trying to create. And like, I know people who are involved in that, and I look at it and I'm just like, this is not, there's two things wrong with it. One is that in a way it's not ambitious enough, it's not crazy enough, it's not, and it's also, it's like trying to become part of a system which it can never really become part of. I mean, if you basically say I'm the University of X, it's like, okay, what is your US News and World Report rank? Well, if you don't care about your US News and World Report rank, why are you even calling it that? And if you do care, you're going to find that you have to do the same things as everyone else. And like, just don't.
Yeah, you'll become. I mean, this is one of the great lessons of Robert McKell's, who I've just been writing, writing the lecture on. He basically says that as soon as you're up and running and established, the institute, the thing that you build, the party, the organization, will become conservative. Now, he doesn't mean that as in like,
I know what he means.
He means it will support the status quo. It will just become part of the establishment.
It will become part of the establishment unless it's actually involved in creating a new status quo. And so, the basically the model, your network of tens seems much more proper to me, because it's like, I'm like, if you're trying to build new institutions, like, don't start with the students. Starting with the students is just LARPing. It's cargo culting. Start with the masters. And, your job is really to define, if you create something where you have a collection of intellectuals, which is so stellar that people want to come there and pay money to learn from them, that's great. But if you basically start with the business of coming there and learning, then that's a totally different thing. Um, and sort of, and you're starting with this, like, you're starting too low. It's like you really have to start with just like, okay, let's recognize what's being done here, which is exemplary at the top, and then see how we can expand that and institutionalize it and structure it without losing its excellence.